Imagine a prison so secure, so isolated, that escaping from it would be like trying to unsubscribe from that gym membership you regret. Basically impossible. Welcome to Alcatraz, also known as The Rock, a place where America sent its naughtiest of the naughty, hoping they'd think about what they'd done. But as it turns out, some of these inmates were more Houdini than hardened criminal. So buckle up as we dive into the most incredible escape stories from Alcatraz, where the only thing thicker than the walls was the inmates' audacity. The Rock. Unbreakable prison or challenge accepted. Alcatraz Island, sitting ominously in the chilly waters of San Francisco Bay, was America's premier maximum security prison from 1934 to 1963. It was the kind of place you'd only check into if the country really didn't like you. With towering concrete walls, icy waters, and currents strong enough to whisk you off to Hawaii, or more likely to your doom. Alcatraz was the escape room from hell with no reset button. The prison was home to some of the most infamous criminals of the time, including Al Scarface Capone and George Machine Gun Kelly. It's like the prison was collecting villains, except there were no trading cards, and the only prize was a life sentence. Authorities boasted that Alcatraz was escape-proof, a claim that was like waving a red flag in front of a bull for some of the more determined or delusional inmates. Over the years, 36 men tried to prove the government wrong in 14 separate escape attempts. It's like they were all part of an exclusive club where the membership fee was a complete disregard for personal safety. The inmates faced a triple threat of obstacles: the imposing physical barriers of the prison itself, the treacherous waters surrounding the island, and the constant surveillance by guards who were about as friendly as a bear with a headache. It was a trifecta of deterrence that would make even the most seasoned escape artist think twice. Despite the odds, the spirit of rebellion was alive and well within the walls of Alcatraz. Inmates spent months, even years, plotting their escapes, using everything from stolen spoons to smuggled-in raincoats. The stories of these escape attempts range from the ingenious to the downright insane, proving that when it comes to the desire for freedom, creativity knows no bounds. Whether it was digging through walls with makeshift tools, crafting rafts from raincoats, or even attempting to swim to freedom through shark-infested waters, the inmates of Alcatraz were nothing if not resourceful. So, was Alcatraz truly escape-proof? Well, that depends on who you ask. But one thing's for sure, trying to escape from The Rock required a combination of bravery, desperation, and perhaps a touch of madness. As we dive into these tales of daring escapes, remember, the only thing more incredible than the stories themselves is the fact that they actually happened. The Fog and Shrouded escape of Cole and Rowe. On a chilly December day in 1937, Alcatraz Island found itself enveloped in a dense fog, the kind that whispers tales of mystery and disappearance. It was on this day that Theodore Cole and Ralph Rowe decided to make their bid for freedom, a story that would become as enigmatic as the fog itself. Cole and Rowe, inmates known more for their cunning than their craftsmanship, were toiling away in the mat shop when opportunity, cloaked in fog, presented itself. A routine head count at 1:00 p.m. confirmed their presence, but by 1:30 p.m., the duo had vanished, leaving behind nothing but questions and a wrench from the tire shop. Their escape was a masterclass in patience and preparation. Over time, they had meticulously sawed through 2 iron bars and 3 heavy glass panes of a window, creating an opening just large enough to squeeze through. Their makeshift passage led them to the high wire fence's gate, which they forced open with the stolen wrench, dropping 20 feet to the beach below. There, amidst the fog and the unknown, their trail went cold. The subsequent search for Cole and Rowe was exhaustive and dramatic, involving tear gas and a lockdown of the island. Yet, all efforts were in vain. The only evidence of their escape was the abandoned wrench and the eerie silence left in their wake. Investigations revealed the duo had weakened the window bars with a hacksaw blade, cleverly disguising their tampering with grease and shoe polish. At the shore, it was presumed they relied on improvised floats, possibly from tires or fuel canisters, to brave the treacherous waters. However, no evidence of a raft or any solid escape plan was found. Prison officials were quick to conclude that the pair met their demise in the cold, unforgiving waters of the bay. The swift ebb tides, coupled with the impenetrable fog and frigid temperatures, would have made survival nearly impossible. Warden Johnston somberly noted the harsh realities of their likely fate, emphasizing the bay's deadly conditions. Federal agents and local police followed every lead, no matter how faint. The Seminole Producer newspaper chronicled the ongoing investigation, capturing the community's intrigue and the law enforcement's silent determination. Yet, with each passing day, the truth of Cole and Roe's fate seemed to slip further into the realm of legend. The escape of Theodore Cole and Ralph Roe remains one of Alcatraz's most captivating mysteries, a testament to the island's lore and the lengths to which men will go for a glimpse of freedom. Wrapped in the fog of that December day, their story is a reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary tales are those left unfinished. The Absurd Canoe escape of 1938. In the grand tradition of Alcatraz escape attempts, the 1938 endeavor by Arthur "Doc" Barker, Dale Stamphill, William Martin, Henry Young, and Rufus McCain stands out not for its success, but for its sheer audacity and, frankly, its lack of foresight. It's like deciding to run a marathon with no training, wearing flip-flops. These ambitious but perhaps overly optimistic gentlemen decided that if they couldn't go through Alcatraz, they'd simply float away from it. Their vehicle of choice? A makeshift canoe, cobbled together from stolen materials. It's like planning a road trip and deciding to build your car out of cardboard and hope. The plan was as simple as it was doomed. Construct the canoe in secret, launch it from the island, and paddle to freedom. The fact that none of them were experienced boatmen, or that the waters around Alcatraz are about as welcoming as a polar bear's embrace, did not seem to deter them. On the night of their great escape, the crew launched their fragile vessel into the treacherous waters, filled with dreams of freedom and, presumably, a complete ignorance of maritime navigation. Predictably, the canoe proved about as seaworthy as a paper airplane, and the escapees were quickly recaptured, wet, cold, and probably a bit embarrassed. The aftermath of the failed escape was a return to the cold, hard reality of life on the rock. The would-be sailors faced additional punishments, and their aquatic adventure became a cautionary tale for other inmates. The 1938 canoe escape attempt from Alcatraz is a reminder that while hope springs eternal, sometimes reality comes in with a cold splash. But you have to admire the creativity, if not the practicality, of their plan. The ingenious escape of 1941. In the spring of 1941, Alcatraz witnessed one of its earliest and most tragic escape attempts. Joseph Bowers, inmate number 210, decided that if the walls of Alcatraz could talk, he didn't want to stick around to hear what they had to say. His job, burning trash at the incinerator, offered him a glimpse of the world beyond the rock, a world he desperately wanted to rejoin. One fateful day, under the guise of performing his duties, Bowers made a run for it. It wasn't a sophisticated plan with decoys or dummies. It was a straightforward sprint for freedom. It's like deciding to run a marathon without training, except the finish line was a sheer drop, and the risk was death, not just sore feet. As Bowers scaled the fence, the guards, adhering to the strict no-escape policy of Alcatraz, issued a warning. When he failed to heed their calls to stop, they opened fire. Bowers' bid for freedom ended as he fell, not into the waters of freedom, but back onto the unforgiving rocks of Alcatraz. It was a stark reminder of the prison's merciless grip on its inhabitants. The 1943 occupation. 1943 brought together an unlikely quartet of Alcatraz inmates, each with a history that read more like a rap sheet from a gangster film than a guest list for a tea party. James Borman, Harold Brest, Floyd Hamilton, yes, of the Bonnie and Clyde fame, and Fred Hunter decided that if they were going to leave Alcatraz, they'd do it with a splash, quite literally. Their plan was audacious, involving the commandeering of the prison's own boat. They managed to get their hands on a makeshift weapon and took 2 guards hostage, which in the world of prison escapes is akin to upgrading from a bicycle to a motorcycle. As they made their way to the dock, their plan unraveled faster than a ball of yarn in a cat cafe. The alarm was raised, and what ensued was a scene straight out of an action movie, complete with gunfire, dramatic dives into the water, and a desperate swim for freedom. Borman and Hamilton hit the water with the hope that the currents would be in their favor. Unfortunately, the bay had other plans. Borman was shot and disappeared beneath the waves, his bid for freedom cut tragically short. Hamilton, on the other hand, was recaptured, proving that sometimes the house does win. Breast and Hunter didn't even make it that far. Their attempt to blend in and escape amidst the chaos was thwarted, and they were quickly taken back into custody. The barbershop quartet minus the singing. In the mid-1940s, Alcatraz witnessed an escape attempt that was less about brute force and more about the subtle art of disguise. John Giles, an inmate with a keen eye for detail and a desperate desire for freedom, decided that if he couldn't dig or swim his way out, he'd simply walk out. It's like deciding to exit a party through the front door because the window seems too complicated. Giles worked in the prison laundry, a job that, under normal circumstances, wouldn't be considered a golden ticket to freedom. However, when the laundry started handling the uniforms of U.S. Army soldiers stationed on the island, Giles saw his chance. It's like working at a car wash and deciding to drive away in a Ferrari because, well, it's there. Over time, Giles managed to pilfer an entire U.S. Army uniform piece by piece. It's like assembling a jigsaw puzzle, but each piece is heavily guarded and could add years to your sentence. With the uniform complete, Giles simply waited for the right moment to blend in with a group of soldiers and march to freedom. The day of the escape arrived, and Giles donned his stolen uniform, likely giving himself a pep talk in the mirror about blending in and walking confidently. He joined a group of soldiers boarding a boat off the island, his heart pounding but his face the picture of military stoicism. It's like sneaking into a movie theater by pretending to be part of a school group, but if you're caught, you don't just get kicked out, you go back to Alcatraz. Unfortunately for Giles, his plan had one major flaw. The boat was heading to Angel Island for a work detail, not to San Francisco as he'd hoped. Upon arrival, his absence was quickly noted, and he was apprehended without ever setting foot on the mainland. It's like calling a taxi to escape prison, but it accidentally takes you to the police station. Giles's attempt, while ultimately unsuccessful, remains one of the most audacious and creative escape attempts from Alcatraz. It showed that even in the most secure prison in America, hope, and a good disguise, could still lead a man to try the impossible. The daring duo. In May 1946, Alcatraz was the stage for one of its most violent and desperate escape attempts, known as the Battle of Alcatraz. This chapter in the prison's history reads more like a war story than a tale of incarceration, featuring Bernard Coy, Marvin Hubbard, Joseph Kretzer, and a cast of inmates who decided that if they were going out with a bang. Bernard Coy, a bank robber with a chip on his shoulder and a plan in his mind, spearheaded the operation. Coy, slimmed down and slippery, managed to squeeze through the prison bars, taking control of the gun gallery. It's like he decided to upgrade from bank robbery to grand theft armory. With the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, Coy and his cohorts, including the notorious Kretzer, attempted to free themselves and others. They envisioned a breakout that would go down in history, not just as an escape, but as a full-blown insurrection. The plan, however, hit a snag. The keys Coy obtained didn't open the cell block door. Frustration boiled over into violence, leading to a standoff with the guards that would last for 2 days. The Battle of Alcatraz left a trail of destruction, with several guards and inmates dead or injured. It was a stark reminder of the desperation that permeated the walls of Alcatraz, a desperation that could drive men to undertake a seemingly suicidal mission for a taste of freedom. In the end, the rebellion was quashed, and the surviving conspirators were captured. The aftermath was grim. Additional sentences for the participants and a reinforcement of Alcatraz's reputation as America's most secure prison. The desperate swim. In December 1962, not long after the infamous Morris and Anglin escape, John Paul Scott tried his hand, or rather, his legs, at conquering the icy waters surrounding Alcatraz. Scott's story is less about crafting rafts from raincoats, and more about a swim that would make even Michael Phelps think twice. Using a pair of stolen gloves and makeshift water wings fashioned from rubber gloves, Scott embarked on what can only be described as the ultimate test of human endurance against nature. It's like deciding to run a marathon in the desert, barefoot, and without water. After squeezing through a window only slightly larger than a bread box, Scott and fellow inmate Darrell Parker hit the water. While Parker quickly thought better of it, Scott persevered, battling the frigid currents in a bid for freedom. It's like he was in a race against the cold, and the cold was winning. Miraculously, Scott made it to the mainland, But his victory was short-lived. Suffering from severe hypothermia and exhaustion, he was found unconscious at the foot of the Golden Gate Bridge. Scott's swim marked him as the first and only confirmed inmate to reach the shores of San Francisco from Alcatraz by swimming. However, his success was hardly an endorsement for future escape attempts. It's like surviving a jump off a cliff only to land in a cactus patch. The authorities quickly scooped up the half-frozen Scott and returned him to Alcatraz, where he likely faced a warm welcome of solitary confinement and a stern lecture on the dangers of late-night swimming. It's like getting grounded, but with more guards. The Great Escape of 1962. In the annals of Alcatraz history, the 1962 escape, orchestrated by Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin, stands as the pièce de résistance of prison break attempts. Frank Morris, along with the Anglin brothers, embarked on an escape plan so ingenious it would make MacGyver proud. Over months, they chiseled away at the walls of their cells using spoons, yes, spoons, turned into makeshift drills, proving that in prison, cutlery isn't just for eating, and the prize was freedom. Their plan didn't stop at wall demolition. They crafted dummy heads from a mixture of soap, toilet paper, and real hair, which they placed in their beds to fool the guards during nighttime head counts. It's like they were early pioneers in the art of the mannequin challenge, except the stakes were slightly higher. But what truly set this escape apart was their mode of getaway. Using over 50 raincoats, they ingeniously crafted a raft and life vests, ready to brave the treacherous waters of San Francisco Bay. It's like they decided if they couldn't be free men on land, they'd try their luck as sailors. On the night of June 11, 1962, Morris and the Anglin brothers put their plan into action. They slipped out of their cells, navigated a maze of utility corridors, climbed up a ventilation shaft, and made it to the roof. From there, they descended the prison walls, launched their makeshift raft, and disappeared into the night. It's like they were playing a real-life game of the floor is lava, except the floor was Alcatraz, and the lava was the cold, unforgiving bay. The escape triggered one of the most extensive manhunts in history, but the trio was never found. Did they succumb to the bay's icy waters, or did they manage to start new lives under the radar? It's a mystery that remains unsolved, fueling endless speculation and intrigue. It's like they vanished into a plot hole in their own incredible story. The 1962 escape from Alcatraz remains one of the most daring and elaborate prison breaks ever attempted. It's a testament to human ingenuity, desperation, and the unquenchable desire for freedom. The mystery of the missing men. Did they make it? After Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers vanished into the misty night aboard their makeshift raft, the world was left with one burning question. Did they make it to freedom, or did the treacherous waters of San Francisco Bay claim their lives? It's like the season finale of your favorite show ended on a cliffhanger, and then it got canceled. The aftermath of their escape set off one of the most extensive manhunts in U.S. history. The FBI, Coast Guard, and local police scoured the bay, the surrounding shores, and beyond. But the trio seemed to have disappeared into thin air. It's like they were part of a magic act, where the magician forgets to bring them back. Evidence was scarce. A paddle, pieces of the raft, and some personal belongings were found on Angel Island, suggesting they might have made landfall. It's like the escapees left breadcrumbs, but the birds ate them. Meanwhile, reports and sightings of the men popped up across the country, but none could be conclusively proven. It's like playing Where's Waldo, but with real people and higher stakes. The debate over their fate continues to this day. Some experts argue that the odds of surviving the bay's currents and cold water were slim, painting a grim picture of their likely demise. It's like they were trying to swim in a giant Slurpee. Others, however, point to the lack of bodies ever being found, and the sightings as evidence that they might have pulled off the greatest escape in history. It's like they ghosted the entire federal law enforcement community. In 2013, a letter allegedly written by John Anglin surfaced, claiming that all three survived but were now old and in poor health. The letter is like a text message from a long-lost friend, popping up just when you'd given up hope. The U.S. Marshals Service keeps the case open, vowing to pursue the escapees until their 99th birthdays. It's like they're playing the longest game of tag ever. So, did Morris and the Anglin brothers make it? The world may never know for sure. Their story remains a captivating mystery, a testament to the enduring human spirit's quest for freedom, or perhaps just a really good tale of the one that got away.